I think music is something which really has no bounds. I mean, it's really something which is as organic, like a living entity. So that's why every day there's some new discovery. Every moment there's some new blessing. So that's why, I mean, this is something that you have to just kind of dig into. You have to do introspects, retrospects, everything put together, because it's a journey which has no ending. It is pretty much like the shapeless and formless entity of power that we all like to connect to, or hope we are able to connect to. That's why music itself, I think, for me, is the greatest form of meditation, greatest form of prayer. So every day is a new beginning. It's a new discovery. So that's what it is. Well, I mean, to start with, I feel extremely blessed to be born in a family where we've had so many iconic performing artists and musicians. From my grandfather, Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan Sahab, my father, then my great-grandfather, Ustad Nanne Khan Sahab, and the list goes on. I don't think I've really found a place, because I think these things cannot be planned. I mean, what I've tried to do in my life is just take forward my father's journey that he's tried to inculcate onto me and my brother. And while doing that, if you are blessed by your guru, if you are blessed by your parents, then beautiful, and by God, of course, then I think beautiful things just organically happen. I think sometimes many individuals, not just in music but many fields, get rebellious and I want to do it my way, I want to do something else, which is a very good thought. But in music, you can't sit down and say, oh, I'm going to do something different and I want my own place. I think things will happen organically if they are meant to happen. But what you can do is just follow the path shown by your guru, by your teacher. And while you are taking that path, you will have some very beautiful moments, and some new things will organically happen. I don't think you need to really stress too much on that aspect. So music to me is pretty much my pathway to spirituality, my pathway to that power that we can't see, that power that brings us to this world and takes us away. But that's what music means to me. But why music is in my life is because of the fact that I was born in a family where music was pretty much the language spoken, the air we were breathing. So it was a way of life. It was not something outside the box. So before I knew it, I was already playing. And though I feel very blessed to have learned this art form, music today is part of who I am. It's part of my DNA. It's part of my very existence. And I just feel that I'm here as a very humble custodian who's trying to understand these 12 notes of music in this lifetime. Well, I think music is just an ocean. I mean, all these 12 notes of music, to even understand these notes properly, like I said, in one lifetime, will be a blessing. I think 10 years ago, when you were, well, a little younger, then I think you are constantly wanting to perhaps prove many things to yourself musically. I think your focus is more on perhaps musical acrobats, technical brilliance, all of that. I mean, I think every age, has its own journey, its own moments to take back home. But today, obviously, what my music is because of what my music was. I'm constantly questioning what I'm doing. I'm constantly wanting to improve myself. I've never been happy with any of my concerts because I feel that sky is the limit. So I just feel that maybe today it's who I am as an individual. I mean, that's what my music is today, because I think our nature reflects onto the music we produce. So what my journey has been is what my music is today. But again, 10 years ago, that moment was important too. I mean, that's why I'm here today, 10 years later. You see, every rag is like a living entity. When I was much younger, I used to tell my father, "Oh, Abba Sahab, I don't like this rag," or I used to say I don't like this rag, whatever. And then my father used to say that, no, that's because you've not understood this rag, or the rag hasn't let itself let you enter into its beauty, its world. Because I think we as a family, for us, every rag is like a living soul, and you have to respect a rag. You have to maintain its sanctity. In fact, when Aban Bhai and I had done a lot of experimental albums back in the day, like Reincarnation, Truth, our idea was to do contemporary stuff, but while maintaining the sanctity of the rag. So all those pieces, as contemporary as the tracks were named, but then Darbari was maintained, or Bihag was maintained. So, and that was a challenge, because end of the day, when you are doing experimental work, then there are no guidelines. You can do what you want. And this is just my humble thought. I mean, everyone's doing brilliant work. So we had always maintained the authenticity of rags, because that was the beauty of classical music, and which I thought can have a very beautiful marriage with even experimental music. So rags obviously have to be dealt with a lot of care, and we have to just maintain the sanctity of rags. Compositions have been made to maintain ragas. So in my father's teaching, compositions have a very big role to play. Every composition has a sthai, it has an antara, which I'm talking technical here, which is the second part, and the third part that goes to the upper octave. So so compositions were made to, because improvisation is great, it's fine, but how do you convey an artist's work in Indian classical music, which is not a written score, is only through compositions. You can't write down someone's improvisation. So compositions have a very important role, and I hope that this importance, the younger generation kind of understands the importance of it. Yeah. The very fact that Indian classical music is an oral tradition itself makes things so different. The fact that there is no rule book as to how classical music should be presented is itself something so interesting. You have so many thousands of artists, vocalists, instrumentalists performing today, but imagine they all are performing with what has been taught to them. There is no guidelines, so to speak, or rather, there's no guideline to presentation, or guideline to duration, guideline to what rag to sing after what rag. So there's so many aspects which are so fluid, which make this art form extremely special. And obviously, I can get into the technicalities of the glides and slides, and the ornamentations, which are so special to Indian classical music, both north and south. But obviously in the West, everything is a written score. But what really intrigues me is that how a violinist or a cellist has to play music written hundreds of years ago and pretty much emote the same thought that composer wrote it with. If someone is playing Schubert or Bach or Beethoven, they have to play it a certain way. They have to convey the emotion that the composer wrote it in. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for Indian classical musicians to do that? If it was written somewhere that you have to sing this rag in a happy mood, and you've not had a good day, and you have a concert, and you're going through your stuff, and you have to still emote in a happy manner. So I mean, so these are, so I really respect the Western classical world and this culture. And when we do collaborations, it's really a learning experience. It's a learning process for us, and I think Indian classical music is an ocean, and I think it very organically kind of reinvents itself. I think with every passing year, you're seeing such interesting things happening. I think everyone is just at the peak of their powers now, because thanks to even social media and YouTube, like I said earlier, everyone's getting so much content easily available that it's they're getting the best. And when I was growing up, one recording changed my life, or one some things called cassettes back in the day. I don't know if people know what that is now, but one recording changed my life. And so it's interesting to now see that how so much content would impact a younger musician, because at some level I think too much content also can be harmful perhaps at some level. So if one can draw a line between how much to kind of take and how much to not take, and obviously your guru, your teacher should completely guide you through that. I think dislike is a very strong word. I mean, I don't think I'm in any capacity to dislike anything, but obviously I think that we do need to kind of think and kind of question a few things, which the stalwarts already conveyed, frankly speaking. I mean, back in the day, the 3-minute recordings were 300 years of magic. I mean, in those 3 minutes, they said who they are. You didn't need to play that rag for 3 hours to convey anything. In those 3 minutes of Ustad Abdul Karim Khan sir, that Jogiya, you don't need more than 3 minutes, right? Inayat Khan Saab's Khamaj, I mean, those 3 minutes are like encyclopedias that we can refer to for the rest of our lives. So that's why today, I mean, with all due respect to all young musicians, I see a generation of musicians who want to convey something, and which really is fine. But I mean, to play, for example, Rag Chhaya Nat for 1 hour, I mean, if you really analyze it, I mean, and that to an instrumental music, I mean, how much is content and how much is repetition? That artist performing that Chhaya Nat for 1 hour needs to analyze. And I'm not sitting here like a professor and talking, but it's just that I think now the idea of proving a point needs to tone down, and it needs to be more about what is appealing. The thing is that when I was growing up, my father was so brilliant about letting us listen to everyone, and not just listening. The training was to actually go and listen to concerts of all these great maestros like Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, Ustad Ali Khan Sahab, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and Bhimsen Joshi ji. And we were so blessed that we could attend all these concerts, and because of my father, we had access to the backstage area. So, we had to hear them. And my father used to say, go meet them, take their blessings. If they don't know who you are, introduce yourselves and take their blessings and then leave. And that was pretty much what we did. So wherever we were, be it in Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, we would always attend so many concerts and listen and just be around all these great masters. So coming back to the recordings you mentioned, we had a lot of spool recordings lying at home, and I was very, smart to have transferred a lot of those spools. And there was one recording of my father's where he played in Kolkata in 1971. It was his 26th birthday concert, and he played from 9 at night till about 6 in the morning. It was the first night long by a solo artist. There was no one else. It was just Abba Sahab throughout the night. Pandit Kishan Maharaj ji was playing tabla in the first half, and then Ustad Karamat Khan Sahab in the second half. So he played Behag, and then there was Darbari, and then there was Shahana, and then Suhag Bhairav and Bhairavi. That recording, I think, obviously my kind of dream as a child always was to be like my father. It still is to be like him, play like him. But that recording kind of made me understand what all this instrument can do. And what my father, I'm not saying it because he's my father, but I mean, of course, what he did to the Sarod, the way he, because so much was done. I mean, with of course, my Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan Sahab, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, then of course Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab. I mean, after that, I mean, what my father did to the Sarod, because by then, I mean, they had done so much already. But then he just opened a whole new world, which was unknown to the Sarod. And then, and that just, I think, woke me up for life. And even today, that recording, I think, really is something special to me. Memories, there are different kinds of memories, like memories of concerts with my father, then concerts by myself, so many memorable concerts with Aman Bhai. But there's too many to list. I mean, I thank God constantly for His blessings, because I do know that I get a lot of opportunities because of being Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab's son, and if I was not his son, I would not be getting these opportunities. So I'm not sitting in complacency about that. But I would like to mention that whatever opportunities come my way, since the time I was 8 years old, I think luckily there was an internal realization. There was a realization that there's a queue of very talented people out there, and you have to value the moment God blesses you with. You should never, I think, lie to your craft. And so even today, every day is like the first concert of my life. I mean, and you start over. I mean, the concert's done, the after party is done. You start over again, and that's what it is. I mean, it's a never-ending journey, and it's like that story of Lord Shiva. There was no end. There was no beginning. There was no end. And that's what music is. And we've all done those concerts where when you're younger, you obviously want to prove your technicality and everything. I've played rags for an hour 15 minutes, Alab Jod Jhala, then Vilambet, Madhyale, then Ati Dhrot, then Dhrot. But today when I look back, I mean, you asked me about how was I 10 years ago and now that's something, maybe that realization has happened today. I mean, that time I was very thrilled. I played Rageshri for 1.5 hours. But today when I look back, was I doing something new in my gut portion, apart from the compositions, which I hadn't done in the Alab Jod Jhala? It's questionable. And I always like to question myself. So I think what needs to be done now is just the packaging should change for some people. I mean, I think everyone gives their best. No one is willingly not giving their best, and everyone has their own point of view. So I'm not looking down on anything. But the idea is that when people come to listen to you, you should try and make sure that they come back. They should not run away. We should not be teachers when we're on stage. You have to be a performer. Because at the end of the day, people have bought tickets. They made an effort to come and hear you and also see you. So that's why you have to make sure that they come back. And you have to make classical music interesting. And this is my humble thought. I think to start with, it's a big blessing to have a sibling in the same field, because you have the common set of issues sometimes. You have the common set of struggles, you have the common set of ups and downs. But obviously, Indian classical music is, end of the day, a very individualistic art form. And both Aman Bhai and I did start off as soloists. But like they say that I didn't plan my life, but life planned things for us. So there were just more invitations for us to play together, and we ended up doing more concerts together. Obviously, I think the fact that we have learned from the same guru, from our father, made things interesting. I mean, he had his vision of what he's learned. I kind of also said things the way I thought I should say it. And then, obviously, when you're brothers, a certain level of telepathy is extremely important, which organically happens on stage. We've never rehearsed. We never rehearse. We've never even practiced together. It's always separately, and we just do things on stage. And before going on stage, obviously we'll talk. Okay, let's do this and this and that. But sometimes you end up doing something completely different. And there have been times we've got off stage and not spoken because we thought that things didn't go the way we thought with what was discussed and what was done, whatever. But I mean, that's part of life. That is part of life. And today I respect him not just as an older brother, but as a Sarod player, and a Sarod player who is looked up to, I think, by everyone in our generation. And he today is an example of what hard work is, what riyaz is, and the kind of things he has been able to do on the Sarod. I mean, it's really something I look up to, and he's an inspiration to me. And without music, obviously, I guess we as a family are really close knit, the WhatsApp group would have still been there without music. And I think obviously the equation would have been there, but obviously I think music makes it special. I think the fact that we're in the same field, like I said, and are growing up, the challenges which we faced while growing up, be it in school or be it when we all started performing, it's interesting. I mean, life is interesting. You meet people. People who you think sometimes are well-wishers, maybe are not, and you learn that in the course of your journey. People who haven't really been around you end up being people who've really been there for you. So I think life is a very interesting journey. Every day is an observation and is a moment. I think the moment or the day you are aware that you've grown, and that's the day you stop growing. So I think, of course, everyone sets standards for themselves, and this is how I would like to play, or this is what I would like to do. But I think the idea is not to take yourself too seriously, because we, end of the day, are emulating or pretty much eating off the research of all these great legends who we've grown up listening. They have, through their journey, through their research, we all got, and when I say we, I talk about the entire fraternity, that we all got ready-made researches to just pick up from. So that's why it's very important to be inspired, and I think to acknowledge that inspiration is extremely important, because inspiration without acknowledgement at some level becomes it actually becomes somewhat like stealing. What's the word? I'm forgetting the word. Plagiarism, yes. Inspiration without acknowledgement, I always say this is plagiarism. Yeah. The learning never stops. Even if your guru is not with you in a physical form, in a spiritual form, the guidance continues, the blessing continues. And be humble. I think more you kind of realize that, you will attain the blessing that is required to get you that blessing in your music. Because see, this craft for me, it's not just about technical brilliance. That's one thing. Beyond technical brilliance, the blessing quotient is extremely important. I mean, if you look around, not just in the music industry, in any other industry as well, not everyone who's known is technically brilliant, but they are loved. And once people love you, then it doesn't matter what you are not doing. And that love and affection that people kind of develop with an artist happens only with blessings. Of course, it's your craft, but again, there's a word called asar. That effect and that equation, I think, happens only with blessings. So be humble and kind of follow what your guru has told you, follow what your teacher has told you, and keep practicing. I mean, practicing is the most important mantra. But be humble. I think never be satisfied with yourself. To start with, I feel blessed. Like I said earlier, that I've been born to a family where music has been there for so many generations. But I'm extremely conscious about the fact that end of the day, whatever your legacy is, whatever your lineage is, what matters is what you are delivering on stage. I mean, you can say bye-bye to legacy and lineage if you are not able to deliver on stage. So end of the day, show your legacy, show your lineage through your craft, not through talking, not through, music has been in our family for so many generations. It's, of course, it's important. I mean, these age-old family traditions and legacies are important. At the end of the day, I mean, what matters is what you're doing up there on stage. You have to deliver. Through your work, your legacy should be visible. And that's been my mantra always. Like I said, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, I would meet people at concerts. Oh, we are waiting for you to perform. We heard Ustad Amjad Ali Khan sahab, we heard your father. We are waiting for you to perform. So even today, we have old timers who've heard my grandfather who are in attendance. And by God's grace, one has been very blessed to have received so much love and affection from music lovers all over India, all over the world. And that's what it is. Never take any moment for granted and just do your best. I mean, and don't be happy with what you're doing, and keep walking with dignity, with grace, and with elegance. When you're on stage with whoever is with you on tabla or on pakhavaj or on mridangam, I'm talking only about the classical concerts, otherwise if you talk about concertos, then we'll have too many musicians to cover. But it's very important, end of the day, to have a personal equation with any performer you're on stage with. Because end of the day, you are sitting together and creating something without any rehearsal. I mean, there's so many times when, these days, all tabla maestros are so busy. So we just meet in green rooms. And there's barely any time sometimes to even, play a composition before you get on stage. But again, because there is a rapport and equation with people you've played with, and then you connect on a personal level as well. So that's why through telepathy, through vibrations, you understand what you're doing. You're collectively taking off from a destination, and you collectively want to land together. And that should be the idea. Many times, there are times you end up sitting with people who are in a very different mind frame. And then, you do the concert, but then at the end of the day, you don't go back home with, you don't take back home very pleasant memories then. But then that's life. Sometimes you've had those kind of concerts as well where someone's not even looking at you, or for whatever reason. People have their reasons, But by and large, when I perform any given concert, I'm very, very sensitive to the aura on stage, to the atmosphere on stage. Anyone who's not happy or not up to it kind of reflects in what you are doing. So it's very important to at least be pleasant when you're on stage, be happy, and end of the day have fun when you're together on stage. And you're collectively creating something on stage. So that's why, I mean, everyone we play with, I mean, they're like a family, we're like brothers, and that we really enjoy. And you learn from each and every performer you're on stage with. I mean, what their dynamics are, what their aesthetics are, you learn. You're constantly learning, you know. Aman Bhai and I have been extremely blessed to have played with all the great stalwarts, from Pandit Keshar Maharaj ji, Pandit Shanta Bashar ji, Ustad Zakir Hussain, and everyone, you know, Pandit Anand Chatterjee, Pandit Kumar Bose, Pandit Sapan Chaudhary, and I mean, the entire lot of other artists. I mean, the list will, if I start taking names, it will go on. But yeah, so it's a blessing, and you go back and you're constantly learning from whoever you're with on stage. Vikku Vinayak Ramji, even he's played with us so many times. So you learn, you're constantly learning, you're constantly taking back some lesson. You see, people like my grandfather did walk the planet, who would do something like this. I mean, that speaks about what music meant to him, what raga meant to him. I mean, because he had learned Darbari from Ustad Wazir Khan Sahab, who belonged to Mian Tansen's family. So, you know, for him, it was everything. He wanted like a resolution passed in Parliament that, you know, this is how it should be done. And my father, as a youngster, was very embarrassed because, you know, he was like, what is my father saying? I mean, and he said that to my father, that, you know, what were you thinking? And my grandfather said, no, someone has to say, and now it will be. And like a child, he came home, I believe, that day and told my grandmother that, you know, the president has said it's going to be all good now, and the body is taken care of. So these were the kind of people who walked through this planet. But my grandfather was a simpleton. I mean, he was even against recordings. So because he felt that if he would record and his, you know, LP or his recording is playing at some wedding at the background when everyone's eating or entertaining, he felt it's an insult to music. So when my father's earlier LPs came out, when his vinyls came out, he didn't tell my grandfather that he's released these recordings. And in fact, some people bumped into my grandfather, came home and started praising my father's recordings. Oh my God, his Desh Ka LP was so fantastic, and Mia Ki Malhar was so amazing. So then my grandfather was extremely progressive, because he told my father, look, I did what I thought was right, and you do what you think is right. And coming back to him being progressive, he also never played a rag beyond 20 minutes. And these were the heroes of the 30s and 40s, because he felt it was all repetition. I mean, that was his courage of conviction. And I see that with utmost humility, I say this, that even my father, I think, has been extremely progressive in his thinking. I mean, be it, you know, performing his concerto with so many orchestras, performing with so many foreign artists, and now more recently with Joe Walsh. I mean, he always looks at music as a world of music. It doesn't have to be, diluting who you are. I mean, we are who we are within. So just the way we don't have to constantly say what our spiritual beliefs are, or what our ideologies are. Similarly, one doesn't need to shout it out that, oh my God, I'm a purist, I'm a classical musician. I mean, no one is taking that away from you. Your musical collaborations are all, call it musical flirtations, call it, just musical journeys. But the seed remains, and it's because of the seed that the branches are around. So that's what it is.
you were granted an hour to spend with Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan Sahib today,
Wow.
what about music would you ask him?
I'd firstly just lie down on his feet, and maybe, and I think the emotion will be extremely charged. I know I might start weeping as well. So once I'm done with that, then I'll kiss his hands and I'll just give him a Sarod and ask him to play. I mean, I would have lost 2 minutes already, but the remaining 58 minutes, I just want him to play.